I am Marwan Cameron, and this is the Conduit. All right, y'all, it is Monday. As you can see, two of my favorite people, Matt Garrett from KCR and Jill Stanton from Bremerton Housing Authority. How are both of you doing this fine Monday after the holiday?
Good. How you doing, Marwan?
Oh, blessed and highly favored. How about you, Jill?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Now, Jill will be coming on and off mute because, of course, all that crazy construction is going on down there on Park Avenue. But how was your holiday?
It was good. It was nice to be off for a few days and good to see family. So it was fun.
Nice. How about you, Matt?
It was good. Got to walk my dog, have a little rest, and it was very nice. It was very nice.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, when did you walk your dog? Because it's been like pouring down rain like the whole time. I was going to go and walk around Evergreen, and I couldn't. Every time I went to go walk, it was like that I can't do it.
Yeah, we walked in the rain, and my dog's getting a little older, so if it's raining pretty hard, he kind of just pulls to go in the house. So I kind of have to pull him a bit to get him going because he doesn't want to go.
Like, are
So
you crazy?
yeah, we had to walk in the rain.
Yeah, it's something else. I couldn't do it. Well, that's why I don't have a pet, right? Just goldfish, and right now I don't even have goldfish. My face is actually up at Petco because they do not sell this man any goldfish. So Layla believes that all these goldfish are at my friend's house that are lonely and need goldfish, but they have passed on to another place.
Gosh,
I've done everything I can, but I just can't keep goldfish alive. It's very sad.
I feel like it's tough to keep goldfish alive.
Man, I've got most powerful filters, and I clean the tank. I've come back.
Yeah.
Fish have been sucked to the tank because it was too powerful of a filter. It's horrible. I went
Yeah,
up fish for
all my
frozen.
goldfish.
It's really bad. So yeah, I'm a bad dad. I'm so bad.
Well,
But
don't feel bad. All my goldfish died growing up too. I remember I had multiple goldfish, and they all I think lasted like a month or something. It was real short.
what's so funny, we're talking about it this weekend, and she says, Dad, just tell me the goldfish died. Like, she's 10 now. So it's like, they died, didn't they? Like, no, let's just keep it on. Santa's still real too, right? Let's go with that. So, but it is what it is. But happy Monday to you all. And, we are post Thanksgiving and wanted to kind of jump in and get any updates and figure out what's going on and then talk a little bit about evictions as always. So, Jill, would you like to go first today?
Yeah, sure. So with the emergency housing vouchers, the updated numbers are that we still only have two that are fully leased, but we have four additional ones that have passed inspection. So we expect those to lease up, within the next week or so, and then one that is scheduled for inspection tomorrow. And then we have several referrals that are somewhere in process. We're expecting our first and only two referrals from Mason County, actually sometime this week. So we'll have very few spots left after that. And I guess the update that I would just share is we had an internal strategy meeting this morning about the real challenges that we're having for both the HCV program and the emergency housing voucher program. And trying to figure out, yes, we know there's a shortage of housing, but what can we do to get more landlords onto this program? And we have a new communications manager that was hired maybe 2 weeks ago. And so she's really on this stuff. And she did some research on other housing authorities that have had more success. Now, let me just back up and say, while I think we'll have 7 within the next couple weeks, and out of our 38, that's like 18%. And if you look at Seattle and King County, there is a big article in the paper where between the two housing authorities, they have 1,300 and they have 10 leased up. So percentage wise, 10.
Wow.
This has been a huge challenge for housing authorities because you can't do this the way you normally do the regular housing choice voucher program. This has to be a community effort, and it has to reach the hardest hit people and people that, are really extremely low income, homeless or at risk of homelessness. And so it's tricky, and housing authorities are struggling. So, but there are some housing authorities that have been very successful. There's one housing authority in California that had 160 something, and they leased all of them so
Really?
far, every one of them. And what they did was very interesting, and I think we're going to do something very similar. They had a strategy in place. They didn't call it the Emergency Housing Voucher Program. They had their own name for it. I think it was a Welcome Home Program. And they marketed this big time all over their jurisdiction. They did huge, bold landlord incentives, which, maybe they had deeper pockets than we have, but we certainly do have some of these, the $3,500 per voucher is available to do some of these things. So the other thing that we kind of just that we talked about this morning is the people that are having the best success, or at least some success, are the clients that have a very engaged caseworker or case manager. Your name came up, Marwan, about driving your clients out to houses and things like that. And, we have a few of the Marwans that are doing this. In particular, Scarlet Road has, I think the two that are leased up are both Scarlet Road clients. And so we have, we have some organizations that are really engaged and doing this work, and maybe others that I wouldn't say are not engaged, but maybe don't know what is needed. So we're going to reach out to all of our partnering organizations and really have some concrete steps that they need to take to help us with this. Of course, we still have the homes that we're hoping to buy. We have our board meeting tonight, so I'll know more about that after the board meeting. Haven't heard anything about the grant yet, but still hoping for that. So we're doing what we can, but we every week we just have to step it up even more. So you'll be hearing more and hopefully seeing more about this campaign in our community.
Well, let me give you the horn for those that are, going through inspection. That's a big deal. It is so tight. I spent some time this weekend looking on Zillow and Redfin and a few Craigslist and trying, like, there was nothing. There was one property on Craigslist, and I mean it is tight. Um, it's a scary time to move. I was looking at, just purchasing a home, and they're saying like even that is really tight right now and may not ease until the spring. And so following all this stuff, it really does take some different strategies to try to get folks in. And that's why I think these Mondays are so important, because while the other agencies, as you said, right, I mean, they're helping their clients as best they can, but it really takes like the whole kitchen sink, and then and then some, to try to make this thing happen, because there's nothing out here and people aren't moving. And because we're so uniquely situated, you've got Navy folks that look really great on paper, you've got folks in Seattle that look really good on paper, and other folks that are just trying to downsize or move up or do whatever inside the town already that are that look good on paper. So the competition is so fierce, and these things are on and off the market so fast. I mean, sometimes within a few hours, or if they know someone, they got them out, and the property's already spoken for. It is tough.
Absolutely. And our staff are really trying to get things turned around really quickly. So as the paperwork is coming in, as inspections are getting requested, we're trying to get out there right away so that we don't lose units.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go to Matt, have you heard anything? I know BHA isn't doing any evictions. Any word on evictions, as far as some clients from outside that you've heard from, Jill, that process has started for them?
I have not. I have not gotten any reports of that so far.
That's good news. I will take it. All right, Matt, how about you? Updates for KCR?
Yeah, I said I would come with some numbers, and I got some numbers for you. I know you like numbers, Marwan.
Let me get my keyboard fingers ready. I'll try to keep up.
So Yeah, I got a few updates, but let's start with some numbers. So the November numbers. So unfortunately, our wait list went up from last. So we're at currently 520 people on the wait list. And that's just, we're getting so many, even though our processing capacity is increased, we're still increasing, which is not the way we want to be going, but understandable given, so many more people are submitting applications. So that's, I'm hoping, I'm waiting for the day we can get under 400 and then 300, and I'll keep announcing it. But right now we're actually going in the wrong direction.
So explain to folks, Matt, so they understand, it was at 6, it went down to 5, but there's more applicants coming in, right? So that's the numbers can go up. All right, I just wanted to be clear on that. So how can those levers work?
Yeah, so you kind of got to think about it like you have a bucket, right? And you've got water pouring in, right? If you're dumping water in, then there's a hole at the bottom, and the water pouring in is clients applying, and the hole at the bottom is how fast we can process, right? But if the water coming in is more than the water going out, then right, we're going to start continue to fill up. Whereas as soon as our processing can increase, as soon as we can get the water out faster than the water coming in, it'll take a little bit, but that's when we'll start draining. But for a while we were doing that, right? We went down from 600 to under 500, about 580, but then this back week, right, the water coming in filled back up, and so that's why. So it's not that stuff has ever stopped, right? We're continuing to process always, and thanks for clarifying that. And I hope folks know that we are increasing capacity, but sometimes we can't control the water coming in, right? The tsunami coming in, and sometimes that exceeds even what we're anticipating. It did this week, so that's where we're at 520 again.
Well, let me say, Matt, let me say also, the reason why, the two of you are so willing to come on every Monday is because the situation is so dire, right? There are so many people in need. The number starts to go down, and then boom, it shoots right back up, because that's how many people are in need, and that's how tight it is. So, I was talking about Kitsap Public Health earlier in the vaccines, and we looked at the charts and things like that, and kind of interpreting what those numbers mean. So having that discussion is so important, so people really have standing. Folks say, oh, well, I know homelessness is bad, but I don't really see it. It's like, yeah, it's out there. And look at the new constructions. There's a lot of storage being constructed because people are downsizing or having to put their stuff in storage as they, are living with friends or doing whatever. So it's hidden, but if you know where to look, you'll see the compactness of what's happening and the seriousness of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, I do think numbers really help, that people can actually have something to latch onto. So for this month total for November, because we're kind of at the end of the month here, we had 252 applications submitted. So that's over half the wait list, right? Has been submitted in just one month. And then the positive is just under 150. So we processed 147 rental assistance applications in November. So that was our, we're excited about that. Obviously, we want that to double, what it is. We want to be 300, maybe even up to 500 a month. And let's just get to 300 first. But that illustrates right there, we have 147 to 252. So our deficit right now, those 100 folks, right, that's just backing up on the wait list, right? So, that's kind of the story of why this is happening is, the input far exceeds the output. So that's kind of where we're at, just a quick snapshot. And then I also said we talk about the legal numbers. So, which is interesting. So they did go up, like I talked about, like October, we had 51. So these are people in active eviction. So in October, we had 51. This month went down a little bit. We had 35 submitted this month here, which was actually, that's good news. I don't know what that bodes for the future. We still think that's going to jump up pretty drastically, but we've got a little bit decreased. But overall, so we've had 120 folks in the eviction process, and that's for about just 3 months that they've really been making referrals. And of those 120, we've processed 75 of them, and 45 are being served actively right now. So that's 120 folks that would have been evicted, if not for the KEPA program. And that's, really all the outreach, but a special thanks to DRC, Dispute Resolution Center, Kitsap Legal Services, and Northwest Justice, because that's a partnership with them and then the courts as well to make sure these people aren't evicted. So that's a big deal, and a lot of credit to the team and the legal partners as well.
Let me give you a horn for that. That's a big one. That's worth a horn. You're keeping someone in their homes. And you said those numbers were 120 people in the eviction process, 75 processed, and how many? What was that last number there?
The 45 are active right now. So we have 45 cases that are that we're working with either attorneys, or we got referrals from Dispute Resolution Center that they're in active mediation, and then we're working with those folks. So there's 45 active right now. So we're getting there. There's a lot of good stuff happening. We're getting there. We are increasing. So I hope, and maybe at the end of the month, Marwan, we can keep kind of talking about numbers like this, and I can kind of give you, the monthly update. I can give smaller weekly chunks, but if that's something you're interested in, or you think some of the folks, we can continue to do kind of monthly numbers. Like, hey, this is where we're at the end of the month. It's number time.
Well, the reason, again, why I think it's important is, folks they're dealing with the holidays. They're dealing with, okay, family may be coming in for Thanksgiving. I've got to, put a meal together because I want it to look like Thanksgiving for my kids, or, or whoever, right? It's important. The school is still going on, but then the winter break is going to be happening. We're still dealing with COVID. I have to move. I've got to, there's all these, mitigating factors. And sometimes what gets lost is I also need to be looking for a new place, or this needs to happen, or I have to spend some time keeping and increasing or cultivating that relationship with the landlord so that I can continue to stay or look for a job or whatever. There's so many different things going on during the holidays. That people are dealing with loss during the holidays, or this is the first year that my father's passed, or whatever. There's so many things. So when you put yourself in the space of someone that's going through, and it looks like they're not making progress, and it's like they are, but it is moving through quicksand for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, and that's what I hope to. If folks, if they feel like, and I know we have folks that feel like they've been on the wait list forever, and hopefully, you're right. It is so difficult during the holidays, especially nothing's happening. I hope some of these numbers might, at least we are getting there. I know it feels from your side like nothing's happening, but a lot is happening, behind the scenes, and we are going to get, and we are working to get there as fast as we can. So we still have the goal of January of getting to that functional zero, and it's looking like Live Story. That's the other big, assuming everything goes well, they're submitting their first applications. And just a reminder, that's a third-party contractor that Commerce offered to help us get COP back up. And so we took advantage of it. We're one of only 3 counties in Washington that just jumped to, and that's kind of how, we're any option that, like Jill says, any option available, right? Like we're taking, right? Like, because how desperate. So it is, because we do want rent to get paid. So they're rolling through their first 50. We've gotten 10 back from them. They're not paid yet, because we got to actually look through, we're blending fiscal system, right? So we got their system, and then now we got to put it through. So it's a process. But if that goes well, we're going to send them another 150 if that goes well. So that's the next big chunk that we're going to send, that they will start working on right away with their call center models. So that hopefully will be another big chunk from Live Story that hopefully I'll be able to next week announce that.
And that was just 10 from the last Monday, and they're new. So they've got to get up to speed. So that's encouraging, because that number is going to pick up as we go forward into the future. Okay, that's excellent. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's really good news that they got 10 really that, pretty quickly. They got 10 back to us. And so, and they're dealing with the, the same issues that we are, is like, sometimes tenants have different numbers, right? People change their phone number. That's why, man, always put an email or something, put multiple contact information on the application, because we do run into that of trying to get in contact with folks, and a number, which is understandable, right? People's number change, they get a new phone number, all types of all types of issues. But that other contact is so important to have on that application. But yeah, having the 10 back this quickly, we're really optimistic about helping them get caught back up. But also, as far as this week, we've got staff starting December 1st. So we got another RAP navigator starting the 1st. So we're continuing to add folks. We got more front desk staff starting on the 1st to help out. And we've got, there's more we're still working through behind the scenes. So hopefully soon I can announce it. But like I told you about the fact-based proxy for income, it'll be a lot easier hopefully soon that people can self-declare easier. That also there's a pathway coming that Commerce is opening up to help us pay off landlords that they aren't even there anymore, right? That's new. We're still working out all that details. So stuff's coming. We are working behind the scenes. So I'm hoping I'll have some stuff in the next 2 weeks to announce too of new policies and procedures. So we are working anything that Commerce. Oh, yeah.
Can I ask you a question about that? So if that goes through and you can pay off back landlords and the tenant's not living there anymore, is there a caveat to that where that landlord is going to have to give them, not a scathing review or something like that so that they can move on and be successful in another unit? Or, I mean, how does that work? Or does that just help them not have, owing if they want to move in the future and that's on their credit? Like what's the benefit to that?
That's really good feedback. So this is partly why, so this policy hasn't rolled out yet. So currently right now we can only, if you're being displaced because of COVID, we can pay off your landlord, but you still have to be there, right? And you have to be being displaced because of COVID, like your landlord moving in or selling the unit because of their financial situation, right? But things are, it looks like we got to look at the details, but it looks like there is a pathway now. And yes, and this is what we have to build, is they're asking us that the landlord now have to sign documents that they're not going to take it to collections, or if they have taken it to collections, that they're going to remove it from collections, right? And so there are some stipulations, which again, this stuff it's not set in stone yet. We're not doing it yet. Hopefully soon, but it's another pathway Commerce has offered and we're taking, because we know we ran into that. Some people are already out, and then now this is on their background, and it's going to make it more of a challenge to get housed. So as long as it was after that March 13th date of the state of emergency, or that's when, according to KEPA, it's looking like there will be a pathway down the line, but hopefully soon. So stay tuned to the Conduit. I'll be here to announce when we got that details. And yeah, Marwan, that's really good feedback too about the review piece, because right now, the stipulations are all about collections and a little more the financial side, but some of the reviews that landlords, that also can hurt tenants. So that's kind of interesting too. I don't know what we could do there, but that's really good feedback. I appreciate that.
And it's not, we don't want them to lie and say, hey, this was a paragon of tenancy, when that wasn't the case. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you're probably upset with this person because they owed, they're gone. So maybe they didn't clean the place or whatever. So all these triggers kind of kicked in. Typically they were fine. And so can the language not be as harsh so it doesn't damage them going forward? You were made whole dollar wise. So it's possible.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. And I think that's definitely something that we'll be thinking about and going forward. So yeah, no, I appreciate that feedback too. That's great.
Joe, did you want to jump in there? Because you were kind of nodding your head there. So
yeah, I was just going to say that would be a really important thing, because that is like one of the number one challenges and barriers that our voucher holders are facing is bad rental history, or no rental history, but the bad is almost worse than the no. So if there was a way to get just even, like Marwan said, you don't have to lie and say this was a great experience, but to just their rent is paid, that's what landlords usually really care about.
Yeah.
Even a 3 out of 5. You don't even need verbiage. Just give them a 3. Give them an average.
Exactly. Please. Something.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think people always consider the macro, like sometimes you'll have that where an employer, wants to get someone to move on. It's like, all right, they're going to be someone else's problem. But, the macro of it is they still need a job. They still need to pay their rent. They still need to take care of their families. So when you look at it from that standpoint, there's a community vested interest for these people to still be housed. You don't want them to be homeless. So, sometimes it's like you got to take how it impacts you individually and then kind of blow it up and say, okay, it's a little bit bigger than that. You're not here with me anymore. I've got a new tenant. Things are going well. I hope you and your family are okay, and you're housed somewhere else, and it's a different outcome for you. Just don't hold on to that.
You're totally right, Marwan. And it's a big challenge of our system is that you have this history, right, that follows you around for good and bad, and the problem is the consequences are so high when you can't find housing, right? And it's not like it's just affecting the landlord, right? It's really affecting the family, the kids, extended, and that's what there's a big societal cost when people, because of bad rental history, can't get housed anywhere. And I get it. Sometimes there's good reasons, right, of why people have bad history. But at the same time, we still don't want those people to be unhoused, right? Especially with young children. So it's a big challenge of our system, the way we conduct it. And some of the eviction meetings I'm on, we just found out, Kitsap Legal Services just shared, because some of their attorneys that they hired are from New York. So New York has a system where they can't look up the evictions that are filed like we can here. So there's not this like system. So there's in New York, and I think some other states, there's better protections, or at least a less centralized system, so that the evictions filed don't hurt folks. Because what we've even found here is that even if landlords don't follow through with the eviction, if just they filed it, that goes in the court record, and that can be used as just an eviction filing. Not even that the eviction was successfully enacted or that a judge actually evicted the tenant, but just that it was filed can be used against clients, right? Even if the landlord's completely in the wrong, even if the landlord filed that without the proper means. So our system in Washington, there's a lot of challenge. There's a lot of room for advocacy too, to kind of update and change some of the system, especially as we're getting more and more tenant protections now, which is great. We've got some bad, but we've got a lot like right to counsel and the just cause. These are tenant protections that many states across the country do not have. So in a lot of ways, we've made some huge progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done, especially in tight rental markets like we have here, just like Jill said. And I echo 100% what Jill said. So thank you, Jill, for that feedback of the rental history killing, clients as far as getting into a place, and that being the one thing that nope, now they did all this work to find a place and poof, it's gone.
Yeah, that's huge. So what else you got, Matt?
So I just wanted to again remind everyone, trying to make our team a little bit more accessible. So we've pretty much got all our folks, our new team, our new look team in our expanded team in their place with the liaisons. So just wanted to kind of just announce that. So our legal partners, so that's Kitsap Legal Services, Northwest Justice, and Dispute Resolution Center. We've got Emily and Cody, so they're on there. So if you get that, we've talked a lot about going. If you got that 14-day notice, you go to Dispute Resolution Center, and if they refer you, you'll be working with Emily or Cody. So they're at our legal process. Hope 360 and Surviving Change clients, that's Deborah and Stephanie. So if you're referred from Hope 360 or Surviving Change, Deborah or Stephanie be looking at your case. Gather Together, Grow Together, Marwan's own is Cody. So Cody's also working still with your team. If you're from Kitsap Immigrant Assistance Center, you'll be working with Stephanie, who has a long history of working with, and some navigators are assigned, multiple agencies. And Stephanie's bilingual and works really well with the immigrant community. Foundation for Homeless Poverty Management.
You said
sorry.
Yeah. Survivor Change. Deborah and who?
Deborah and Stephanie. Deborah and Stephanie.
Stephanie. All right. Doesn't help if I do a typo. And then Kayak was next.
Then Gather Together, Grow Together is Cody.
Okay.
Then you have Kayak is Stephanie.
Stephanie. All right.
And then Partnering for Youth Achievement and our landlord/hotels are Alyssa.
Alyssa, okay. Landlords and hotels?
Yep.
Alyssa. Uh-oh. Ooh, I don't know how to spell Alyssa.
Alyssa.
SSA. Okay.
And then pulling off the wait list. So these are just trying to help us get caught up off the wait list is D, Wendy, Kathleen, Amanda, and Jasmine.
The team there.
Yep. So that's what. So we're like we said, we doubled the size of the team. We're really putting in a lot of effort trying to get those times down. But just so folks know, that's who you might be working with, depending on who you get referred to. And that we got all these. We got our liaisons now in place going forward, and we're really hoping to process some applications.
All right, that is awesome. And it's always good to have the names with the organization depending on who you go through. So, and it's big for Dispute Resolution Center. So Amy and Cody for sure. Is that our same Cody?
Yep.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go ahead and give him our Cody's awesome. Stephanie loves Cody, so it's all good.
Yeah. Cody is fantastic. Yeah, everyone loves Cody. I haven't found one person that has ever had a problem with Cody.
Well, let him know he got a horn today. We appreciate it.
For sure. I'll let him know.
So that's a lot of updates. A lot of stuff happens in a week's time, even through the holidays. So it's important. Definitely want to tune in and make sure that you're abreast to what's going on. Again, you can always submit your questions here. I also put up Jill and Matt's information so you can contact their offices directly if you need to. One of the things I did want to get into was it is eviction time now that the moratorium is over. And in that, I'm always, I said maybe this wasn't on live, but I was telling Matt before we went live that I was looking this weekend on Zillow and Craigslist and some other places, and I'd come across this Kitsap property buyers. And so these guys are local. And although this article is June of 2020, the eviction process do's and don'ts in Bremerton. And so that caught my eye. And this is what landlords were being told, right? As a landlord, you will inevitably have to deal with the eviction process. It's never fun for you or the tenant. But there are ways to prepare so you can make things go as smoothly as possible. Here are some do's and don'ts to help you navigate the process. Now, I want to go through the don'ts. We can scroll back up to the do's, but it's important that you understand what they can and they can't do. Again, none of us are attorneys here, so take all this with a grain of salt and definitely look this over. Don't know if you folks recognize this Ryan and Jesse Jelly. They've been here for 16 years. This is an endorsement of their website. There's just information that people may come across when they Google. And I get information like this from folks that we help. So they say, hey, I saw this here, or I saw this there. I was looking around. And so it's good to kind of talk about what's out there. But some things were don't ever physically remove the tenant or of their possessions without a court order. You will need to go through the legal procedures to have the tenant physically removed. If you see anything that you want to just say anything about, either Jill or Matt, just jump in and start talking. Do not change the locks. This can come back to bite you. The tenant can use this against you in court, ultimately costing you the case as well as several $1,000s.
Hey, Marwan, I just wanted to come in at the first one. And Marwan, I keep preaching this all the time here. And I just want to continue to keep saying, don't leave, engage the process, because you will lose your rights when you leave, right? If you don't respond to the landlord, if you don't respond to an attorney, if you don't show up in court, all these tenant protections go right out the window if you do not respond. And that's what landlords, especially the ones that might not be doing it properly, this is exactly what they want, right? Because then it saves them time, and you lose your case if you don't respond and go through the process. If you go through the process, there's more protections than ever. And a landlord, only the sheriff with an order from the judge. And that means the process has to go through Dispute Resolution Center, right to counsel through Kitsap Legal Services. You actually have to go to court, and then the court orders the sheriff. And so that process takes time. But in order to get the full protection of the process, you have to engage. So I love that's the first thing. The landlords don't ever just kick them out. They can't. Only the sheriff can do that. And there's a process to get there, and you'll have plenty of notices if you go through the process, and the process can give you time to figure stuff out. So I just wanted to really keep harping on that so people know, do not just leave. It's very intimidating. I know the process is very scary, but that's what you can call, gather together, grow together, call our front desk, and they can help give you some information. Call myself. We can help, try to point you in the right direction.
Thank you for that, Matt. And, again, from an emotional standpoint, this is an emotional thing, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
facing an eviction, you're behind in rent, or there's another factor, right? It doesn't feel good. And it may not even be the intent of pure malice from the landlord. Both parties could be operating from a case of ignorance, and ignorance isn't a bad thing. It's just you don't know, right? So the landlord doesn't know. They think they have rights. They're telling you, I want you to pay or you're going to have to get out. And, we have clients that say they just keep calling me and they keep telling me that I got to go. And this is what's happening. And then you succumb to the peer pressure, or you just don't want to deal with it anymore and you leave, right? So understanding that maybe they're out to get you. Sometimes that's the case, but oftentimes they don't know. They're just trying to get their money or resolve the situation the best they can. And this ends up being an outcome, and it looks and feels the same to you. So that's important. Go ahead. You were going to jump in there again, Matt?
No, I was just going to say too, I love that you brought up the emotional side of it, because, the fear and also shame, right? We know there's a lot of shame, behind this process forward. And that's what my staff, we get, we train them, and I'm sure Jill does the same, right? We want to be as trauma informed, and we know most of the time this stuff is out of people's control. We try to restore some dignity into this process, but you're absolutely right, Marwan, is that there's a lot of emotion to this, and even the landlords bring in emotion because they could be behind on their rent, right? So they have a mortgage lender or a debt collector harassing them. So then now they're, maybe they're a nice person, but they still need to follow the process, even though they've got pressure on their end. And that's what, we were just dealing with a tenant the other day who the landlord is, putting all the pressure of being behind on their mortgage on the tenant. And that's not the landlord's. That's not the tenant's responsibility, is to help the landlord, right? The landlord, this is the responsibility of being a landlord, is you have someone's housing. So even with they have a pretty good relationship, it's still not, the tenant does not need to take on the responsibility of the mortgage. They need to solve the rent and really need to try to set up, at least from our perspective, the landlord needs to do a better job of setting the boundaries, right? That's the tenant's not responsible for the mortgage. That is the landlord's responsibility. So that's a really good point. I just want to, second what you're saying, Marwan, of like that emotional component is so powerful.
Joe, did you want to jump in there?
Well, I'll just say that's right. And we're kind of seeing it from that other perspective and it's really heartbreaking. Our clients, they are feeling so emotional and so torn down, especially when they have these barriers and if they have an eviction, that they almost can't even bring themselves to call a landlord on a unit that we're, suggesting that they call. And sometimes we'll do it for them when we can. I mean, it's hard. We've got a lot of clients. But that the emotional toll that this takes on people is, for both the landlord and the tenant, is really life changing in a negative way for a very long time. And so I think that we do have to account for that. And I'll just say that's in our meeting today, one of the things that came up is we definitely have to start dealing with people in a different way. Because if we're having people that just literally are so, they're tired of trying and they feel hopeless at this point, and mostly where we see it in both programs, but we're seeing it at a significant high level in the emergency housing voucher program. And so we just have to change the way we're thinking about this, and we now need to have places ready, that are easier for these people to get into. We can't be kind of chasing down all the competitive ones, because these people can't do that. They just simply cannot. And I mean, we're having the ones that we've had luck with are the ones where literally someone has taken their hand and helped them through this process. So, yeah, I mean, it's on my mind today because we had this meeting, and to the extent that our community can help us with this, it's the only way it's going to happen.
Yeah, what I'll add to that is if you know someone that is going through this situation, just try to support them. They need a friendly voice. They need re-encouragement. They don't need to be chastised or the "I told you so." It's already really hard. So when you think about it, rejection is hard. So one, you already need to leave this place. This person wants you gone. You're trying to find a new place. You're getting no's for whatever the reason is, right? There's no availability, or you don't look good on paper, or whatever, right? You could be beating yourself up because you've done some things in your past that have put this on your paper, so it's made it harder. So you just demoralized on both sides and you feel trapped. And there's going to be days where, even though they know the clock is ticking and they need to find a new place, the phone call didn't get made today. They didn't have it in them.
That's exactly right. We hear that every day, and they just don't have it in them. So what are we going to do with that, right? I mean, they do need people alongside of them to just give them some hope.
And the worst thing is to make a permanent decision on a temporary situation. That was the phrase I couldn't remember last week, but that emotion that says, you know what, forget it. I'll just do whatever. And if you move out, and then it's like, hey, maybe we can put you in a hotel for a month, but now you got that hard 30 days and now you're in a shelter, right? I mean, it goes that fast, unfortunately. So it's just tragic, but understanding, through education, I think is really important so that we can have more empathy and sympathy there. So absolutely. A few others who are legally not allowed to turn off the utilities in someone else's name, even if it is your own property. As with the above, you must always follow a legal procedure. Don't ever take matters into your own hands. Threatening the tenant, making them uncomfortable in the home, and harassing them in any way can be a huge detriment to your case. Um, and I think this part is really subjective here. The multiple phone calls, the coming by the unit. Um, I mean, what do you consider a threat? That's depends on who's looking at it. Um, but there are tons of stories about landlords that just call over and over and over again, and even just inquiring, hey, I'm waiting for eviction assistance and it hasn't come yet. And it's like, okay, well, they're processing it. You had the letter of attestation and you called yesterday and you called the day before that. And it's just going to be a process that takes its toll. So I think it's good for them to let landlords know you probably don't want to do this. Not a great idea. In most cases, you are not able to keep the deposit in lieu of back rent. Return the deposit that is owed minus damages and work the rest out in the court of law. So I don't know how this works, but I just was working with a client that was saying that the landlord was going to keep their deposit for back rent. And again, if you don't know your rights, you may just like forfeit it and move on. So it's good to just contact Matt or one of the other agencies and just find out what your rights are. Right? It's really quick and easy to do. If a tenant leaves, be careful about throwing away items left behind. Most states have rules regarding notice and storage. They must be notified about the belongings and what you intend to do with them after a certain date. Again, this is an article from Kitsap County, and that's why I kind of went over this. This is a year and a half old, so some of this may be outdated. Again, we're not attorneys, we're not vouching for the accurateness of these statements here, but these are things to note that we definitely see. That happens, right? And even they're saying, hey, this blog is for informational purposes only. So check the local laws where you determine your best course of action. Some of the things that they do tell them to do just quickly are try to reason with your tenants and resolve the issue before going to court. I think that's a wonderful, idea. We often say on the tenant side here on the Conduit and in our offices, try to cultivate a relationship with the landlord, right? You want to have a good relationship. There's not a lot of places to go. So if you can stay housed, that's ultimately the situation. Can you work out the issues? Maybe they didn't fix this in a timely manner. You're going to catch up on your rent, whatever the case may be. The communication is what's so important. there. So I love that they're telling them that on that side, because someone should tell the landlords that, see if you can resolve the issue. At some point they were a good tenant and you moved them in and they were probably good for a few months or so, even a couple years, and maybe something happened. So can you get back to how it was before when the relationship was symbiotic on both sides? Eviction should be your last resort when you have someone living in your house without paying any owed rent. You will first need you will need to first end the tenancy. You will have to let them know in writing that they are to vacate the property. All pertinent information should be included, including the date, reason, time frame. It should be signed, notarized, and sent certified. This is considered the formal notice. So I don't know. I can't wait to have the attorneys on, Matt. But that would be good to know. It is just a piece of paper not valid. Like, well, I'm evicting you. This is your notice. Does it need to be this official? Because if it does, then that just becomes a tactic, right? Will you just kind of leave on your own? And if you do, okay, well, thanks, and then you lose your rights. So make sure you have a detailed paper trail. Again, that's for both sides, right? Make sure you have a documented paper trail too. I love email. I love text. Because then you don't have to try to remember it in your mind. The detail is going to get foggy after time goes on. So here you've got it very clear. Always be professional. Have no emotion in your email. Just state the facts, right? The 5 W's. That is the best way to go with your emails. Do jot down all your times, your dates and times of correspondence between you and the tenant. Get a court order before removing possessions and changing locks. That's good for them to know. Make sure you abide by all laws and timetables within your state. And as we have the attorneys coming on here in the coming weeks, we know that this is a new process. So we don't know what this is going to look like. So we'll all be kind of learning together as people slowly start to go through the eviction process, unfortunately. And then have the sheriff or marshal remove the tenant if they still remain after you've won the case. Taking matters into your own hands only leads into trouble. And when the attorneys come on, if it does get to this point, it's also good for you to know uh, what to expect if it got this far, right? Because again, it's scary. You probably haven't been through it before, and so just having some idea of what to expect, I think, is good. Any thoughts on the dues on that side, either Jill or Matt?
I'll just say, I don't know if either of you have ever seen someone evicted, but it is a horrific sight. I mean, I've talked to the sheriffs that have had to do it, and it's like something. If you see it happen once, you're not gonna, a landlord, no matter, I don't care who you're not gonna want to see this happen again. And so working it out ahead of time, I think the first thing that they said there is, this isn't good for anybody. So if you can work this out, especially with the rental assistance programs and the things that we have in place, even if it's not a rent issue, if it's something else, I would always say try to mediate and resolve the issue before going through that process, because it's traumatic.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, it's traumatic for everyone, but especially for small kids,
Yeah.
elderly, disabled. I haven't seen it live. I've seen it on video, um, recordings of the sheriff and folks coming and moving things out. I know, I think in Texas or some other states, like there's a new business opportunity of companies coming and evicting, physically moving the property out, and it's just oh yeah, you're right, Jill. I've seen some horrifying videos that is just heartbreaking. Matt, Matt is so stoic. You don't know if he's frozen or not. He might actually be. His signal's
I
like,
think he's frozen this time.
is
Oh,
he
I don't
frozen?
know. I just saw a head movement and an eye blink. Go ahead, Matt.
Matt, kill your camera and then start talking. It might come back on. I think it's just because you're inside KCR. Are you in the old building or the new building?
Can you?
There he goes. He's moving a little bit. Oh, there we go. Let's see. All right, now say something, Matt. All right. Well, we'll wait for his signal to come back. Yeah. So you've seen it in person, Jill, an eviction?
Yeah, not here in Bremerton, but at a previous housing authority that I worked at. And I mean, it was, I've seen it a couple times, and it had to be done. Like there was nothing else we could do, but it was really sad. The one that I always think about, they did have children. The children were not in the home when they were evicted. They had been taken away, and there was a lot of issues. But the saddest thing was just seeing the children's bedding and the toys on the front lawn.
Yeah,
And it's like
right out in the front.
right out there. Yeah. And they stay there for a while. And so I don't know, how things have changed recently. I think we store things now. This was years ago, but like just seeing that, just everywhere I've worked, it's been like, what can we do besides evict? What can we do? Because we don't want to do this. It's going through that process is just so harmful. And it's harmful for the neighbors too. It's scary.
Yeah. I mean, snow, rain, they're piling things on top of everything because they can't just spread out a whole house on the lawn. So if things get broke, it is definitely tragic. Matt is definitely back now, so go ahead, jump in there, Matt.
Can you hear me now, Marwan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll just second what Jill said. I don't think I need to add much because everything that Jill says, I've been through one, and it is the actual live being on site when it was happening, and it was, probably the hardest day. I don't know. There's been a lot of tough days on the job, but it's the hardest thing to watch that process happen, and so. That's why we, are in the business, right? To avoid that happening at all costs, or at least if it has to happen in a much more trauma-informed, in a much better way than having a law enforcement official actually forcibly remove you from the house. It's awful. So I think Jill summed it up perfect. That's why we do what we do. And that's the last possible thing we want to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know what? We had a jam-packed show today. It was a great one coming after a holiday. I know it was really busy and you guys aren't caught up. Wanted to give you the final word of the day. Jill?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have a final word, but I'll just say thank you, and we'll just keep trekking along. I'm really hoping to have really great numbers in the emergency housing voucher programs over the next month or so. So you'll probably be hearing more, seeing more about it in the community. Thanks, Matt.
No, thank you all. Just always really grateful to such good company. I love meeting with you all on Mondays, and so I'll just say thank you and stay tuned to the Conduit for KEPA updates. I'll as soon as they happen and they're official, I'll announce them here. And there's a lot coming in these next 2 months, so there's going to be more changes and more updates. So thanks, Marwan. Appreciate you in the Conduit.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate the two of you, KCR and Bremerton Housing Authority, and all the work that you're doing, all the unique things that you're doing and thinking about on how to holistically serve clients. It's so much more than just, hey, let's just get them housed. Let's just get them housed, right? I mean, you're really looking at it from a different standpoint that I think probably has always been there, but there's more focus on it now. And I think the tenants are feeling that, also. And I appreciate being talked out in a meeting today. We're doing good work too. So that's awesome, right? And really a lot of that has to do with just how would you feel if you were in that situation? And so that's kind of how we look at it. And when we can, that's how we try to, to do it, and hopefully we can get some results from it. So that's it for today. For Jill and for Matt, I'm gonna ask them to stay on as we go offline. But we will see you next Monday. I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. So very much appreciate you.